Hello, it's Maud again, and today I want to take you along in dressing a little fairy doll. I was playing around with things I have in my room, and I thought, why not dress the smallest of the little dolls first? Because, well, last time in my latest video you saw me do the body of this doll. She's quite a little bit larger, but I wanted to make a really small doll this time. Well, actually, she's not really that tiny. She measures about 16 centimeters. But I want to show you how I made this without using any patterns. And I made it with my knowledge that I combined my things that I know from junk journaling and also things that I made this for junk journaling really, but it's lovely hair for this fairy too. And as you can see, I have given her a couple of wings of old book pages. I did reinforce the paper with a bit of clear gesso, so it doesn't rip that easily anymore, but obviously she is fragile. And yeah, just let me show you what I used to make her, and then I'll show you how I did this. I have prepared the other small head that I had, and for the arms I'm using a piece of wool that is made into this sturdy like rope material. You can buy this in several craft stores, and if you don't have this, you can also use a pipe cleaner. Well, this does not look as good as this obviously, but what you could also do is then cover the arms in felt, and that way you would excuse me, then the arms would be the same as the dress, so it would look like she has long sleeves. But for this time I'm using this. I'm using a piece of leftover felt, the same as this one, to make her a little bodice and a hat. I have also cut out a few leaves with my die cutting machine. I keep the dies for cutting felt apart from the dies that I cut paper with, but I need those. And I'm also using a bit of really sheer fabric. And the way I got this is by taking scarves from the thrift store. When I see them, especially with these beautiful small patterns, and these are silk scarves that I found in the thrift store, and they don't cost a thing, probably between 50 cents and €2 I paid for these, and these make lovely fairy clothes. I mean, you don't need to buy new things, you can buy secondhand stuff to make your dolls with. Some thread and a couple of beads, and let me show you how I make this doll. I will keep her here so you can watch her all the time. What I will be doing first is putting the arms in between, and I'm just eyeing it, but making sure that these lengths are the same, and you can push them forward, and if you keep them in front of her and they are exactly the same length, then it's perfectly fine. Pin it for now. Just put these aside. So thread your needle. I like to use a double thread for this. And this is just attaching this piece of wool rope to the rest of the doll. Just a couple of stab stitches. This will disappear completely, so you won't see anything of it. This part, it doesn't matter what your sewing skills are, and it doesn't matter what you do, but I just want to close her little body because I'm not giving this fairy any legs. I want her to float, and if she's floating like this, it looks really nice. So I'm probably going to attach a little string here and then have her float around. Cutting this off. And now for the skirt. It's not even, and that is perfectly fine because I am going to rip the lower part of the skirt to make these frays, because that looks really nice on this doll. And obviously this doll is not for playing. But I'm going to stitch this side and then I'm going to gather this one, and then I'll show you how to attach this to the bodice of the doll. So what I did was sew the seam, and now I've got this little circle, and I'm going to gather the top part, and once I'm all around, I'll be back. So I gathered the skirt at the top, and now I'm going to attach it to the doll, just underneath her arms, pulling the fabric and dividing the fabric evenly, and then pulling it a little more. And just with a couple of stitches attaching it to the body of the doll. And you could make this skirt even longer if you like. I mean, it would also be nice if she had a really long skirt that would be flowy. And if you put these fairies in front of a window that opens in summertime, she will probably just float around in the summer breeze, and that will be so nice. And you see, you don't need a pattern for these clothes. They're so nice just to make as you go. And now to make the bodice. It's also really simple. I just eye how long I want the bodice to be. And for this doll, like for this doll, I just want the bodice to be this long. So I'm folding the felt, putting a pin in here, and then, well, I just took a width that I thought would be really nice. I'm doing that again. So she does have a shirt on, but she has short sleeves. So I want a shirt until here. I'm just going to cut this piece of felt. And normally I would just cut it right away into this shape, but to show you what I'm doing, I now have this piece of felt, putting it on her body again. And because I have this doll, I want this doll to match. But if you are just making your first doll, then obviously you just can play around. Yeah, I like it like this. And what I'm doing now is cutting it to the front. So the front will be like an oval shape. And in order to get these sides the same, I just fold it like this. And sometimes it's easier to put a pin in there so it will stay. And then I'm just cutting the other side. This way you don't need any patterns, you just make it up as you go along. And this way you can use your leftover pieces of felt. Well, this is not really neat, so I'm going to now, to get it on, I need to see what I want for the front side. Well, I like this side for the front side. So at the back side, I'm cutting into the felt until the fold, folding it double, and then taking a piece out for her neck. And now I can fold it onto the doll like this. And now you see that her shirt is coming together. So it's nothing more than just an oval shape that you cut in and take a piece out so you can put it on the doll. And I'm going to close this seam. I'm going to use a single strand of embroidery thread. And once I've closed the seam, I'll show you what I did. I was thinking you might like me to show you how I do this. And I'm using a blanket stitch to close this seam. And well, it does not really matter how you do this because the wings are going to be attached on the back side here, so you won't see any stitching anymore. So just use whatever stitch works best for you. I'm so used to doing blanket stitches with felt. And if you also sew part of the fabric of the doll, that's perfectly fine, because then it gets attached really well. This is just fine. Now I'm going to take my needle through the felt, just all the way through the felt. To the part where I want to close this shirt. Oops, you've got something on your nose, sweetie. I like to close my shirts just underneath the arms with small stitches, just a few stab stitches. And now I'm going back through the felt. My needle is not very long, so I'm coming out at the back. And going through the felt again to the other arm. And closing her shirt again on this side. Just a couple of small stab stitches. And then going back again to the back. Oh, my tummy is growling. I need to get myself a little something to eat. And now she's got a little shirt on. And what I did with this doll is gather her arms in front of her, so she gets a really nice posture. And you see, I've cut this open a little further than I did with this doll. But that's perfectly fine, because I like a part of the skin showing here. Excuse me. Yeah, she's coming together really nicely. I'm going to pause for a minute, get myself something to eat, because, well, my tummy needs it right now. And then I'll be back and show you how I do her hat. I thought of something else. Before we do the hat, let's close her arms like the other fairy. And I'm just attaching a little piece of pink thread. I also did her hands with pink. Gathering the hands first, doing a couple of stab stitches. Make sure that this is attached firmly. And then take a nice little leaf. I am taking this one. This one is rather odd because it's got this incision here, but if I fold it like this, it's perfectly fine. Then first attaching the leaf. And now I've got this little charm that says made with love. And well, I just love these. And putting the little charm here also, because this has some weight, it pulls her arms a little bit down, which is rather nice. Cutting it off. So now also her shirt gets some shape. And now for the hat. Let me see what side I like best. I don't like this really pale side. I am just folding the fabric over her head. So it doesn't matter how big your head is. This is always the same method. You fold the felt over her head until it comes together on the other side. And then you put your pin in here. And this is the width that your head should be. Measure it again for just to be sure. And you want a snug fit on this head. You see, this is really, yeah, can I show you? Yeah. I will cut it and then show you again. Make just a little cut there, then fold it over. And yeah, I want it straight here too. So my incision is there. And this is a really easy way to make a hat. I want a pointy hat, and just to show you, if I put this on here, it measures until here. So make a little cut there too. Keep the pin in here. And as you can see, my pin is bent, and that is an easy way to work with felt, because if I use the straight pin, my felt would go like this. And if I use a bended pin, then my felt stays flat. But I have an incision here and an incision here. And to make these hats, all you do is just cut them in this shape. Sorry. Cut them to a shape like this, and then measure, and then you end up with this. And I want the point to be a little bit pointier. And this is the same height as this little doll. Now measuring it again, putting it around, and it just about fits on the end. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to do blanket stitches here all the way, and it is you do want this to be snug, because that way the head stays on, and we are going to do a couple of stitches on it, but not much, and it will stay on by itself. I'm going to blanket stitch this with a single strand of embroidery thread, and then I'll be back. I've blanket stitched this all the way, but I left a little part of the top open, because what I like to do with these fairies is not embroider all the way to the top, but do the point like this. And for embellishment, I like to give her a leaf on top of her head, attaching it first with a few stab stitches. And then attaching a little bead on there. These are seed beads, glass seed beads. And I love it on there. And going through the felt and cutting it off. Now let's see if this attaches on her head. And it is snug, but like I told you before, I like it to fit like this. And this would be perfectly fine, but I love this hair on these little fairies. I thought this was a little bit bare, so I am going to take 3 strands of this. You see, yeah, this is the length I used. So it isn't much, it's just 3 strands of this eyelash trim that I have colored myself. I did this with, what did I use? Acrylic paints and acrylic inks. Attaching that on there. And now I just need a little piece of leftover thread. This is enough. Just putting it on her head and just doing a few stitches. There's sparrows in front of my window, and they're making quite some noise. I think it's young sparrows that want to be fed by their parents. Like this. Then putting the hat on top. Oh, and I like these little fuzzies in front of her face. Maybe because my own hair is like that also, always in my face. Oh yes, I really like this. And I'm going to attach a new piece of thread and put her hat on, and I will show you how I do that. For this, I'm going to use a double thread, starting at the back of the doll, on her hat, just making a few stitches to secure this piece of thread. And then, this might be difficult to see. I'm going to stitch into her head. And then taking her hat and pushing the needle forward and coming out inside the tricot, the doll tricot. I'm just making really, really small stitches, but going through her head and her hat. And if I pull it in, you can hardly see it, but just so the hat stays on. And you don't need to do a lot of stitches, just like 4 or 5 all around. And then the last one. I need to redo her hair. Oh, I love her already. And now to make these phrase, I'm just going to put my pin in there. I'm just going to pull, and by hand I'm going to pull some phrase too, because well, this fabric frays so easily and it is so fragile. So pulling on it, but gently. And this way her skirt also gets kind of a balloon shape. And it stays really airy and light. And if you're saying, well, I don't like that she doesn't have legs, obviously you could take even more of this material and just attach some legs here that stick out from underneath her skirt. But I like them this way. Just airy and flowy. And now she needs some wings. So I've cut a butterfly shape out of paper that I have reinforced with gesso, some clear gesso, so it doesn't tear that easily. And I'm going to attach this to the back of the doll with the leftover thread. And you could glue this, but I like to do a couple of stitches. This is enough. And now to finish it, I'm going to glue a leaf over here. And I've had this little flower, so I want this little flower on here because, well, this is a 4-leaf clover and this was a little bit more plain. Oh, I've got another flower left. Okay, she's going to get a flower too. And this is the only time I'm using glue. And I'm using art glitter glue just because I have it on hand and because it sticks everything to everything. This just takes a minute to catch. And once it is on there, it is on there. And then gluing. I also do these tiny flowers with a die on my die cutting machine. So like this. And now I've got 2 of these really lovely little fairies. And let me just take my fairy journal out and let me show you how they look together with the journal. I think they complement the journal too. Look at these. Oh, I love this so much. I could almost attach one of these on here also. I'm not going to do that because, well, then I can't work with my journal anymore, but they are so lovely together with my fairy journal. And it's coming together like, yeah, everything that I've learned in the past few years and over the 15 years that I was a doll maker. It's all coming together for me now. And I love these little fairies. I hope you do too. And I hope I have given you a bit of an idea that it's not that hard to make dolls' clothes. I hope you can do this yourself. And do show me what you make. Show it on Instagram, or if you have a YouTube channel too, tell me down below in the comments section. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here with me again. And I hope to see you again really soon. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more. Bye bye for now.